This is episode 497 on the 21st of March 2022, as we are only T minus 3 episodes away from reaching 1,000 episodes. Now, everyone knows that the WWE or professional wrestling or sports entertainment in general is a hyperbole. And every year, when this particular event takes place, more and more adjectives are added to describe it. So every year, the more they exaggerate it, the more it remains the same. And that's the most interesting part of it. Now, the match card for this year is as interesting as it was for the years before. But to make it more significant and say that it's different from the previous events, they of course add adjectives like marvelous and amazing and stupendous. Will it turn out to be that way? Let's look at the match card one by one and see if any of the matches will be in the marquee matches, let's say 20 years from now, because that's what we look at as rivalry and matches which will never be forgotten. Let's start with the match card and let's start with the title and championship matches. The first one, which has been given a lot of airtime for the two defending champions, because this is a very different match, a match which often doesn't take place at this level. It's a winner take all unification match, which means Brock Lesnar, the WWE World Champion, and Roman Reigns, the WWE Universal Champion. If they go on to win this particular match, they will have both the titles. And how will the atmosphere change after either of them not only retains their title but grabs the title of the opponent? Well, that will be an interesting aspect. But the airtime given to both the individuals, and the interesting part is that their rivalry goes 7 years, means for 7 years they have been going back and forth for various championships for both of them. But do we say that things are different right now in context of what has happened over the past 24 months? Well, that's debatable. For me, will it go down as a unique rivalry? Well, that's for others to interpret. For me, every rivalry is interesting. One may say that their rivalry has been going on for far too long. It's become a cliche, but then that's the case with every rivalry that takes place in this particular business. And I can give examples, but not right now, maybe later on. But the interesting part is that how will it affect the individual who loses that championship? There are two aspects to this particular match. Either through a disqualification, both of them retain their respective championship and they carry on their business as always and have new opponents, or whoever wins both of them, how will it affect the other one? Either way, it's a win-win situation, or to some extent a win-lose situation, because whoever loses will have an impact. Of course, everyone is putting their focus on Roman Reigns, but neither of them want to lose and yet retain their championship through disqualification. So don't be surprised if there are outside interferences, because if there are no outside interferences, it's not a championship match. As I said, it's a different championship match. So some have labeled it as farce, because what is the significance of having both of them in a match which is a winner-take-all unification match, and what is expected to have an impact after the match? Either way, it's a win-win situation for both. If there is interference and if the referee calls the bell, both of them retain their title. This is not a usual title match. But that remains to be seen because a lot of things are to be achieved through this. What is the message? We'll know at the end of the night. The next interesting match is for the Women's Championship. Another rivalry which has been going back and forth for 6 months, with SummerSlam of 2021 in picture as Bianca Belair lost her championship to Becky Lynch. Now they have been going back and forth, and after 6 months of things that have taken place, after various other contenders and defending the championship, these two are in focus once again. But their focus may be affected by the other brand's championship match, which may get more airtime as far as the discussion is concerned. So these two are good wrestlers and future legends in their own right. But the other women's championship match, that is for the Smackdown Women's Championship, this match may get more airtime, more discussion time because of the individuals involved. As I said a few weeks ago, Ronda Rousey, like Brock Lesnar, has been spending time in the squared circle more than anticipated her to. And then this rivalry also goes back 3-4 years. And the pre-match promotion, the pre-match what one calls face-to-face confrontation has been all about who will tap out the other. What will eventually happen is difficult to know because both of them are wrestlers in their own right. They have in-ring experience. They have done this before. But not all the time do titles change hands. Does one expect the two women's defending champion to retain their respective title? You may expect that, but you have to win through pinfall or submission, unlike the men's match, because that's champion versus champion, which was proposed by Lesnar even before he knew he would become the WWE World Champion. Who knows how long that has been going on for, because they wanted a Reigns-Lesnar match to get maximum airtime and maximum discussion time. But anything is possible. As I said, both the women's matches will be great and legendary in their own rights, but this particular match may trump the other one in terms of who are the two individuals involved in grappling for a title shot, and that will be the most interesting part of this rivalry. Maybe no one takes this seriously right now, but that's the beauty of such things. We don't take the current lot as serious individuals or someone who can join that greatness. That has happened with every sports athlete. For example, the 20-year-old Lakshya Sen lost the All India Badminton final and everyone said he failed to win. But then at the same time, we look at his coach Pulela Gopichand as a great champion, but did he fail? So you don't know what the individual thinks, and that is the most important part in this particular discussion. Maybe 20-30 years from now, when these individuals are retired, comfortably sitting on their couches, they may look back, or analysts, as always, may look back and say, these two had a great championship match at this particular Wrestle-mania event. Even the Reigns-Lesnar match, which goes back 7 years, their rivalry, every time they meet, it will be in that category of, yes, it's a great match. So that depends on the nature of how we look at such matches. Of course, pseudo media has had an impact. In the pre-pseudo media era, it was a slightly different atmosphere, but in the post-pseudo media era, it does make an impact because now you have so many individuals arguing over it. You look at the pseudo media, even if it's a great match, some of them may just write something opposite and it may venture into a different debate. So that's how we look at these two. Who knows what will happen? Either way, whoever wins, you will say they deserve it, which means if, for example, Ronda Rousey goes on to win the championship, will she become more and more regular in this particular arena, which she was once upon a time as one called a part-timer? Will she become a full-time wrestler? That's still to be known. So one doesn't know what kind of things one is looking forward to. If the two defending champions successfully defend, they will take their legacy forward and look forward to new rivals going on. But while these three individual championship matches will have their own sweetness attached to it, another match which will have an impact is, of course, the tag team championship, the defending champions versus two teams who are newly formed. So the two teams have a history, and in triple threat matches, there are no disqualifications, no countouts. First team to gain pinfall or submission wins. And the interesting part is that the champions don't have to be pinned to lose. So if the team of Sasha Banks and Naomi pins Ripley and Morgan, they win, or vice versa. But then it means expect tables, chairs, the commentators table to become an important part of this match. Outside interferences, and some way they would want to defend which of the three teams deserve it more. But all these three teams are formed only on the basis that they want to win the championship. So, for example, if Carmella and Zelina lose, then their team is disbanded because it came together because of the fact that they could win a championship match, and they did win one. But if they lose, they are done. Each team is dependent, their longevity is dependent on whether they can win the respective championship. Whichever team doesn't, two teams out of the three teams will obviously be disbanded. Whoever wins will carry on and ask for new challengers, but whoever loses, you may not see their team again, or they may ask for a rematch. Who knows? But it's difficult to assess at this point in time. What has been interesting is this particular match. Now, I'm not going to go into the history of how the RK Bro team came about, because that's something that everyone has their own analysis on. But they also participated in a triple threat match in which they beat the champions and became champions, and then they had challengers in Street Profits who are former champions. And if you look at the team formation of both the teams, they don't have much in common. But to make it sweeter, the teams have been formed. There's a bit of emotional attachment to both the teams as to how these two teams carry on their work and work with each other. That is the most important part. So will it be a night in which all the champions will lose their title? It never happens. It's a rarity. It has never happened before, but you never know what is being planned for this particular event. Except for the men's match, we can leave that in a different zone. All the normal title matches, will it come to a point where all the champions will at the same time lose their title, whether it's a tag team championship or the individual championship, or will they retain? Either way, if they retain, they will carry it on. If they lose, well, how long will the team go on? Because the teams are formed on the basis of the fact that they have won matches together in non-title situations, as well as they won the championship, but both teams equally deserve to have a shot at the title and have great rivalries ahead. You never know. This may become a great rivalry. In this particular profession, you never know how long a team lasts. You have seen Randy Orton team up with numerous other professional wrestlers and other individuals. We thought that was a great one. This one is based on a bit of the comic timing of the individuals. The feeling is that it's based more on emotions rather than on just winning and focusing on winning championships. So whatever is the duel will be very interesting. But now let's take a look at the non-title matches, because the title matches, as everyone knows, either the championship will retain their respective title, or as it often happens, there will be new champions. Will it be all the champions lose at the same time, or will it be one-on-one? That depends on that night. It's difficult to put an assessment to it because what happens one doesn't know. It's difficult to see. But the non-title matches are interesting because this year there is a crossover that a few of the individuals involved in the non-title matches are not regular professional wrestlers. They are from other professions who have some connection to this particular business, but they are not regular and their training is different. Means you have popular individuals from other professions in the entertainment business crossing over to this particular business. How long will that last? Is it a one night only situation? That's a possibility. We saw a certain Bad Bunny, a popular singer, become a part of this particular non-title match, and he performed some really good stunts, but he had been training for 6 months. So that was already planned. Maybe the non-professional wrestlers involved in these matches have been training quietly, and when they were cleared and when they were told that they are ready to go, you may see them perform stunts which will stun everyone, but that's not going to be new because they have been training for a long time. There will be skeptics that can, for example, the likes of Logan Paul, who is not a regular professional wrestler, team up with The Miz, and of course their rivalry with Mysterio has been going on back and forth. To have Rey and Dominic Mysterio and The Miz, who are professional wrestlers trained from right from the time they wanted to become professional wrestlers. You have Logan Paul, a popular individual in other entertainment industry, crossing over to this particular entertainment side of things. And then the mind games have started, and maybe Logan Paul is training with The Miz. That's what the whole idea is about. Why do individuals come together to form a team? That's a mystery in itself. Either they have some kind of connection like the Usos or the Mysterios, who have some kind of, as one calls it, a bloodline connection or a family connection, or you have two individuals who are enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of a story. So you never know why teams are formed. But this will be a very interesting situation because you might see Logan Paul perform stunts which will stun the entire audience as well as the commentators, or this partnership may fall flat and you might see the Mysterios winning that. But this will come to the mind game part of it and not just the brawn part of it, and that will be the most interesting thing in this entire rivalry. And this is a regular match. Drew McIntyre and Baron Corbin, they have been going back and forth for weeks, and this rivalry hasn't really infused many because this is a non-title match, and Drew McIntyre, after losing titles or not getting titles, has gone into a different shell, and then his opponent has also been playing mind games, but these mind games maybe 30 years from now may be seen as something spectacular. The more they compete, the more the rivalry will fashion into something which will, in years to come, be seen as something which was once upon a time a great rivalry. But till that time that happens, this may be just another mundane non-title match, or using their skills, they may make it into a special non-title match. But that remains to be seen. What will it be? And if it does happen, will we see both of them challenge the champion for a title shot? They may challenge either Brock Lesnar, who will win both of them, both the titles, or Roman Reigns, who might win both the titles, or separately if there is a disqualification in that match and they retain their respective titles. So a lot is to happen, and I would want to see the non-title individuals also get a shot at the title, because they have been waiting for a while, and it will be a new rivalry instead of the mundane rivalry which we have seen time and time again. Another interesting part is, this is quite interesting because Kevin Owens called out Steve Austin to his show which he hosts. So that show is more of a farce and just an obligation to give some airtime to him so that things can happen in the background. Now, the interesting thing is that Steve Austin has not been a regular wrestler for the past 20 years. And this is important because the city hosting this year's event is in his hometown of Texas. And maybe there was a popular demand to call him into the ring. And instead of making it into a very mundane kind of a thing, they have gone a different path and used the Kevin Owens show, and Kevin Owens as an individual who uses the spanner as a finishing maneuver. So it will be the case of which spanner wins. Remember, Steve Austin has not been a part of professional wrestling for a while, so ring rust comes into play. So this is not a match as such, but you never know what it may turn out into. It may turn out into a brawl, or they may have words at each other. But this is happening because of the fact that the town or the city in which this match is being hosted is his hometown, and without him, how can you even think about having a match? That's what others say. I don't say that. And this has been going on for the past 1 year. He has been endorsing this particular event for the past 1 year. If it was to boil down to this, to make it different, you may never know what the WWE management has in plans as far as this particular part of the event is concerned. So it will be a very interesting showdown. Will it turn into a brawl? Will they actually compete? Is something that will be known on the night of this particular show itself. Till then, you can all wait and watch with your fingers crossed. Another one which they tried to add luster to is two generational wrestlers who have performed and won titles at their own level. Edge versus AJ Styles. Last year it was Edge versus Randy Orton. This is not a new thing that they try to bring in two individuals who have never competed ever, despite being in this profession for over 2 decades or more. But this was just to add that luster to the thing that maybe these two competing would see actual in-ring performance. Two individuals with their own style of wrestling. One is aggressive, the other one, as often the commentators call, is a technician. It will be once again the game of mind games. Who has a higher chance? The 50-50 situation. But it will be given that kind of an edge with the style of AJ Styles. And then the pre-match promotion for this match has been taken to a different level. I won't discuss here because that's not significant. But that will be the interesting part. Two generational stars meeting each other for the first time. I don't see why it didn't happen before, but it did. So when it has, because the commentators will go on to say a match we thought we would never see, but we are going to see unless something happens. So it's not going to be a new dimension to what is already a stacked match card, with some matches which make sense, some matches which are, well, crossovers. How much successful will that be? But then professional wrestling and sports entertainment and crossover is not a new phenomena. It has been happening for decades. It has happened before. We have seen the likes of Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali being a part of this particular profession. Boxers have been in this ring for a while. So it's not a novel thing. This match may get airtime and discussion time as always. But who has a bigger advantage, one doesn't know. And then here's another one of those crossover matches. Sami Zayn, Johnny Knoxville. Johnny Knoxville is a stunt professional who does all kinds of stunts. That's what the profile says. And these two have been once again going at each other for the past few months. They have been interfering in each other's matches and doing things which has got the ire of the other, and they finally faced each other after months and months of back and forth verbal confrontation, because most of these matches have been dominated by verbal confrontation, but the physical confrontation will happen. And of course, you have somebody who's a professional wrestler. The other one is in another business, but not a regular one. This will be the point of discussion. Will that affect the likes of Johnny Knoxville or Logan Paul or others, that they are not regular wrestlers? That will be the point of discussion which everyone will be looking forward to. Either way, expect brawls in all of these matches. Don't expect technical pure wrestling, because that's not the aim. Maybe in the AJ style match, expect a few maneuvers and some style which may look as, okay, two individuals have spent 20 years, have gone through all the grind, and now they are here facing each other with a lot of experience in the back end, and it will be more of brain and less of brawn in that match. But here expect more brawn than brain, but we never know what will happen. Another one which is a crossover, and a very interesting crossover, is a match between Pat McAfee and Austin Theory. Pat McAfee has been a regular commentator with the WWE for a while, and then he was given an opportunity to compete at Wrestle-mania, but he didn't know, or it was given that kind of a color that he didn't know that Austin Theory, another emerging wrestler, would be his opponent. And the way it was given that story, the storyline has been interesting because he's a commentator, and a few times Austin Theory has irked him, but a commentator or an official cannot harm a wrestler or vice versa. It's been a very interesting confrontation over the past few weeks, and it has finally become that these two will face each other, and maybe this will emerge into something more beautiful, who knows. So this ends episode number 497 on the 21st of March 2022, and I will be back with episode number 498 on the 23rd of March 2022. So stay tuned for the next episode. And what should you do while you wait for the next episode? Put these legendary books in your must-read books column. Once again, put these legendary books in your must-read books column.